Tesla's reign might be over. While everyone was watching Elon Musk's every move, a small, secretive company just quietly solved the one problem holding back the EV revolution for good. And they're about to change everything. Tesla's reign might be over. It sounds impossible, doesn't it? For a decade, Tesla hasn't just led the electric vehicle revolution, it has been the revolution. Elon Musk, a figure as iconic as his cars, has become a symbol of relentless innovation, pushing the boundaries of what we thought was possible with batteries, software, and autonomous driving. The Tesla logo is more than a brand, it's a statement about the future. But the future, as it turns out, waits for no one, not even the man who sells flamethrowers for fun. While the entire world, from investors on Wall Street to car enthusiasts on YouTube, was watching Musk's every move, his every tweet, his every rocket launch, something was happening in the shadows. Far from the glaring spotlight of Silicon Valley, a small, almost unknown company, backed by quiet money and staffed by some of the brightest minds you've never heard of, was tackling the one problem that has kept electric vehicles from true, uncompromised mainstream dominance. They weren't trying to build a better lithium-ion battery, they were trying to kill it. And after years of relentless work, countless failed experiments, and a fanatical devotion to a vision everyone else called impossible, they have succeeded. They have solved the holy grail of energy storage, the mass-producible, affordable, ultra-safe, and hyper-efficient solid-state battery. This isn't just an incremental improvement, this is a complete paradigm shift. It's a leap forward so significant, it threatens to make every battery in every Tesla on the road today look like a relic from a bygone era. The company's name is still a closely guarded secret among industry insiders, but the shockwaves of their breakthrough are already beginning to ripple outwards. What they have created is a weapon, an instrument of disruption so powerful it could not only dethrone Tesla, but completely remap the entire global automotive and energy landscape. So how did they do it? And what does this mean for your future car, your home, and the world? Stick with us, because the story of this revolution is the most important story in tech today. To understand the sheer magnitude of this breakthrough, we first have to understand the kingdom it's about to overthrow, the kingdom of lithium-ion. For over 30 years, this technology has been the undisputed king of portable power. It's in your smartphone, your laptop, and most importantly, in every single electric vehicle sold by Tesla, Ford, VW, and every other major player. The rise of lithium-ion was a revolution in itself. Before it, rechargeable batteries were heavy, inefficient, and suffered from a memory effect that crippled their capacity over time. Lithium-ion changed all of that. It was lighter, packed more energy into a smaller space, and could be recharged hundreds, even thousands of times with minimal degradation. This energy density is what made the modern smartphone possible, and it's what allowed Elon Musk to dream of a high-performance electric car that people would actually want to buy. The Tesla Roadster and later the Model S were masterpieces of engineering built on the back of this remarkable chemistry. Thousands of small cylindrical lithium-ion cells, similar to those in a laptop, were wired together in a massive pack to create a rolling power station capable of out-accelerating supercars. It was a triumph. But for all its glory, the king has always had a dark secret, a collection of inherent flaws that everyone in the industry knew about but mostly accepted as the necessary cost of going electric. These flaws are the reason the EV revolution, for all its momentum, has always felt compromised. We've all heard the stories. We all know the terminology. Range anxiety, charging time, safety concerns. These aren't just buzzwords. They are the fundamental barriers holding EVs back from completely conquering the internal combustion engine. Range anxiety is the most famous of them all. It's that nagging fear in the back of your mind on a long road trip, watching the battery percentage tick down, wondering if you'll make it to the next charging station. While modern EVs can offer 300 or even 400 miles of range, that number is often a best-case scenario, achieved in perfect weather at moderate speeds. Throw in a cold winter day, which slows down the chemical reactions in the battery, and that range can plummet by 30 or 40%. Suddenly, your trip requires meticulous planning that a gasoline car owner would never even think about. Then there's charging. This is perhaps the single biggest inconvenience. Filling a gas tank takes 5 minutes. Recharging an EV, even at a Tesla supercharger, can take 30 minutes to an hour to get a significant amount of range back. At home, on a standard charger, you're looking at an overnight affair. This reality shapes how you use the car, turning spontaneous long-distance travel into a logistical challenge. It's a compromise we've been told to accept. But the darkest secret of lithium-ion is its volatility. The core of the battery is a liquid electrolyte, a flammable organic solvent that acts as the medium for lithium ions to travel between the anode and the cathode. If the battery is punctured in an accident, or if it overheats due to a malfunction or rapid charging, this liquid can ignite. The resulting fires are notoriously difficult to extinguish, burning at incredibly high temperatures and releasing toxic fumes. While rare, these events are catastrophic and create terrifying headlines that erode public trust. Finally, there's the cost and the ethical baggage. Cobalt, a key material in the cathodes of many lithium-ion batteries, is expensive and often mined in conditions that involve child labor and environmental destruction. Nickel and lithium mining also carry significant environmental footprints. For decades, the entire industry has been locked in a cycle of making incremental improvements to this flawed king. They've made the batteries a little cheaper, a little safer, a little more energy dense. But they have never been able to solve the fundamental underlying problems because those problems are baked into the chemistry itself. They were trying to build a better candle in a world that was about to discover the light bulb. For as long as engineers have been frustrated by the limitations of lithium-ion, they have whispered about a successor, a mythical technology that promised to solve every single one of its problems. This technology has a name, the solid-state battery. It has been the holy grail of energy storage, a messianic breakthrough that has been perpetually 5 to 10 years away for the last 2 decades. The concept is, on the surface, deceptively simple. The one component responsible for the fire risk, the temperature sensitivity, and many of the performance limitations of a lithium-ion battery is the liquid electrolyte. So the solution is to get rid of it. A solid-state battery replaces that flammable liquid with a solid material, typically a ceramic, a polymer, or a glass. This one change unlocks a cascade of almost unbelievable benefits. First and most importantly is safety. By removing the flammable liquid, you eliminate the primary cause of battery fires. You can, in theory, puncture a solid-state battery, cut it in half, or expose it to extreme heat, and it simply won't catch fire. This isn't just an improvement in safety, it's a complete redefinition of it. It would make EVs fundamentally safer than gasoline cars, which carry a tank full of highly combustible fuel. This enhanced safety has a knock-on effect. A significant portion of a modern EV's battery pack weight and complexity is dedicated to cooling systems and protective casings designed to prevent fires. With solid state, much of that can be eliminated, making the packs lighter and simpler. Next is energy density. The solid electrolyte acts as a perfect, impenetrable barrier, which allows engineers to use far more advanced materials for the anode and cathode. The ultimate goal is to use pure lithium metal for the anode. Lithium metal is the lightest solid element and has the highest theoretical energy capacity, but in a liquid electrolyte, it's a nightmare. It grows sharp, needle-like structures called dendrites that can pierce the separator, short-circuit the battery, and cause a fire. But a solid electrolyte is strong enough to physically block these dendrites from forming. By unlocking the potential of a lithium metal anode, a solid-state battery could theoretically store twice as much energy, or even more, in the same amount of space as a current lithium-ion battery. This translates directly to range. A Tesla Model S with a 400-mile range could, with a solid-state battery of the same size, suddenly have an 800 or even 1,000-mile range. Range anxiety wouldn't just be reduced, it would be completely and utterly eradicated. The third miracle is charging speed. The solid electrolyte allows for a much faster transfer of ions than a liquid, meaning you can pump energy into the battery at a much higher rate without the risk of overheating and damage. Imagine pulling into a charging station and getting 500 miles of range in the time it takes to buy a cup of coffee, 5 to 10 minutes. That's the promise.
It's a charging experience that is directly comparable to filling a tank with gasoline, removing the final major inconvenience of EV ownership. And the benefits just keep coming. Solid-state batteries are projected to last much longer, capable of withstanding tens of thousands of charge cycles with minimal degradation. They are also less sensitive to cold temperatures, solving the winter range loss problem. And because they can use more abundant and cheaper materials, eliminating the need for cobalt and reducing the amount of nickel and graphite, their manufacturing cost is projected to be significantly lower than lithium-ion once produced at scale. More range, faster charging, perfect safety, longer lifespan, and lower cost. It sounds too good to be true, and for decades it was. The promise was always there, gleaming on the horizon, but the path to get there was littered with failures. The dream of solid state is not a new one. For years, the world's largest corporations have poured billions of dollars into cracking the code. Giants like Toyota, Samsung, Panasonic, and Volkswagen, along with countless well-funded startups, have all had massive research and development programs dedicated to this technology. Toyota, in particular, has been famously bullish, holding over 1,000 patents related to solid-state batteries, and periodically announcing that a breakthrough is just around the corner. Yet here we are, and there are no mass-market EVs powered by solid-state batteries. Why?
Because the theoretical elegance of the solid-state concept hides a series of monstrously difficult engineering challenges. It turns out that replacing a liquid with a solid inside a battery is one of the hardest problems in material science. The first and most formidable barrier was the dendrite problem. While the solid electrolyte was supposed to block the growth of those needle-like lithium dendrites, early materials just weren't strong enough. Under the pressure of fast charging, microscopic cracks would form in the solid electrolyte material. Lithium ions would then exploit these cracks, building up inside them and eventually forcing the crack to grow, like a tree root breaking through concrete. Once the dendrite punched all the way through, the battery would short-circuit and die. Finding a material that was both an excellent ion conductor and physically robust enough to resist dendrites felt like searching for a unicorn. The second major hurdle was the interface. In a liquid battery, the electrolyte flows freely, making perfect contact with every nook and cranny of the anode and cathode surfaces. This ensures a smooth and efficient flow of ions. But in a solid-state battery, you are trying to press two solid materials together, the solid electrolyte and the solid electrode. At a microscopic level, these surfaces are rough. They don't make perfect contact. This creates gaps and voids that impede the flow of ions, dramatically increasing the internal resistance of the battery and crippling its performance. It's like trying to build a perfect bridge with bricks that don't quite fit together. Over the charge and discharge cycles, the electrodes naturally expand and contract. This constant movement would cause them to lose contact with the solid electrolyte, further degrading the connection and killing the battery's performance over time. Maintaining a perfect, durable, and ionically conductive interface between these solid layers was a puzzle that stumped entire teams of PhDs. The third great wall was manufacturing. Lab-scale solid-state cells were one thing, but producing them at the scale and cost required for the automotive industry was another beast entirely. The ceramic materials often used for the electrolytes were brittle and had to be processed at extremely high temperatures in specialized environments. The techniques were more akin to making delicate microchips than rolling out battery components. The processes were slow, energy-intensive, and incredibly expensive. There was no clear path to creating a giga-factory that could churn out millions of these batteries at a price competitive with lithium-ion. Many companies, after spending hundreds of millions of dollars, simply concluded that it was impossible with current technology. They scaled back their ambitions, shifting focus back to incremental improvements in lithium-ion. They chose evolution over revolution. The industry's consensus slowly solidified. Solid state was a dream for the 2030s, maybe even later. It was a technology of tomorrow, not today. They had all looked at the same insurmountable walls and decided to walk away. But the secret company, the one we'll call Aetherion Dynamics, saw not walls but a series of doors, and they believed they had found the keys. Aetherion Dynamics was not born in the sprawling corporate campuses of Toyota City or the gleaming glass towers of Silicon Valley. It began in a modest university lab, a spin-off founded by a renegade materials science professor and a handful of her most brilliant graduate students.
They weren't automotive engineers or corporate titans. They were hardcore scientists, obsessed with solving fundamental problems at the atomic level. They watched the corporate giants throw billions at the solid-state problem with massive teams and established manufacturing processes, and they saw a critical flaw in their approach. Everyone else was trying to find a single, perfect wonder material for the solid electrolyte. They were searching for a material that was simultaneously a superionic conductor as strong as diamond to stop dendrites and as easy to manufacture as plastic. This material, Aetherian's founders believed, did not exist. It was a fool's errand, a chase for a mythical substance that violated the basic trade-offs of material science. A material that is great at conducting ions is typically soft and crystalline, while a material that is physically strong is typically dense and amorphous. The two properties were fundamentally at odds. So, Aetherion took a completely different approach. Their philosophy was not one of finding a single material, but of engineering a composite structure. They asked, what if we stop trying to make one material do everything? What if we combine multiple materials, each specialized for a single task, and arrange them in a sophisticated, bio-inspired architecture? Their inspiration came from nature. They looked at things like bone, which is a composite of soft collagen for flexibility and hard calcium phosphate for strength. They looked at nacre, or mother of pearl, which is made of brittle calcium carbonate platelets glued together by an elastic biopolymer, resulting in a material with 3,000 times the fracture toughness of its components. Nature didn't use wonder materials, it used clever engineering on a microscopic scale. Aetherian's goal was to become nature. They decided to build a solid electrolyte that wasn't a simple uniform slab, but a complex, multi-layered structure.
They weren't just battery makers, they were atomic architects. This radical departure from conventional thinking was why they were able to fly under the radar. While others were publishing papers on the conductivity of new ceramic compounds, Aetherion was working in secrecy, perfecting a manufacturing technique that was more like 3D printing at a nanoscale than traditional battery assembly. Their work was slow, painstaking, and horrifically expensive in the early days. They burned through their initial seed funding and were on the verge of collapse multiple times. But their early prototypes, while small and inconsistent, showed flashes of impossible performance. They were demonstrating properties that the rest of the scientific community considered to be mutually exclusive. They attracted the attention of a reclusive deep tech venture capital fund, one known for making huge, long-shot bets on companies trying to solve humanity's biggest problems. With a massive injection of capital, Aetherion went dark. They moved into a nondescript research facility in the middle of nowhere, imposed a strict code of silence on all employees, and began the grueling process of turning their laboratory miracle into a scalable product. For 5 years, the world heard nothing. The industry giants continued their slow march of incremental lithium-ion improvements. Tesla dominated the headlines. But inside Aetherion's facility, a revolution was being forged in fire and vacuum chambers. They were solving the impossible, one layer at a time. The core of Aetherion's breakthrough, the technology that solved the fundamental trade-off that had stumped the entire industry, was a component they internally called the quantum weave separator. This wasn't a single material, but an intricately structured composite ceramic polymer film, no thicker than a human hair. It was the atomic scale equivalent of a medieval chainmail shirt layered over a silk tunic, a perfect combination of strength and conductivity. The base of the quantum weave was a hyper-flexible, self-healing polymer. This polymer was designed to be an excellent insulator electronically, but was riddled with precisely engineered nanochannels. This soft, flexible base solved the critical interface problem. When pressed against the anode and cathode, it would conform perfectly to their surfaces, flowing into every microscopic imperfection to create a seamless, uninterrupted connection for ion flow. Because it was flexible and self-healing, it could also move and stretch as the electrodes expanded and contracted during charging, maintaining that perfect connection over thousands of cycles. But this soft polymer alone couldn't stop the deadly dendrites. That's where the chainmail came in. Suspended within the polymer, in a perfectly ordered, three-dimensional lattice, were billions of microscopic platelets of an ultra-hard ceramic material. This ceramic was, on its own, a terrible ion conductor and far too brittle to be used as a standalone electrolyte. But Aetherion wasn't using it for conduction. They were using it as a physical barrier. These platelets were arranged in an overlapping fish scale pattern. A lithium dendrite attempting to grow through the polymer would immediately hit one of these impenetrable ceramic scales. It would be forced to change direction, only to be blocked by another scale, and another, and another. It was forced into a tortuous, meandering path. The energy required to navigate this microscopic maze was far greater than the energy of the dendrite's growth, effectively and completely halting its progress before it could ever start. It was a brute force solution, but one executed with nanoscale elegance. The final piece of the puzzle was how to get the lithium ions through this maze. This was the most brilliant part of their design. The surfaces of the ceramic platelets were treated with a proprietary coating, a monolayer of a material that acted as an ion superhighway. Lithium ions flowing through the soft polymer would be naturally drawn to the surface of these platelets and would then zip along them at incredible speeds, bypassing the slow path through the polymer. They would jump from platelet to platelet, flowing through the quantum weave with almost zero resistance. So you had a material that was soft and flexible at the macro scale to ensure perfect contact, brutally strong at the micro scale to stop dendrites, and hyperconductive along engineered pathways to allow for insane charging speeds. It was 3 different materials, each doing one job perfectly, woven together into a single revolutionary component. This was the key that unlocked the door. With the quantum weave separator, Aetherion could finally use the most coveted of all battery materials, a pure, solid, metallic lithium anode. They had caged the beast, and in doing so, had unleashed its full power. But inventing the material was only the first part of the war. Now they had to figure out how to build it. A revolutionary material that can only be made in a lab is just a scientific curiosity. Aetherion knew that their quantum weave separator would be useless if it couldn't be manufactured at an automotive scale, meaning millions of square meters per year, with perfect quality control and at a cost that could compete with existing technology. This was the wall where so many others had crumbled, and Aetherion was determined to break through it. The traditional methods for producing the ceramic components of solid-state batteries involved processes like sintering, where powders are fused together at extremely high temperatures, often over 1,000 degrees Celsius. These processes are slow, require massive amounts of energy, and are difficult to scale. The resulting ceramic is also brittle and prone to defects. Aetherium's composite approach required something entirely new. Their solution was a groundbreaking manufacturing process they called acoustic mist deposition. It was a room temperature, atmospheric pressure technique that completely eliminated the need for high-temperature ovens and vacuum chambers. The process started with the raw materials, the polymer precursors and the ceramic microplatelets suspended in a liquid solution. This solution was then atomized into a fine aerosol, a mist of tiny droplets using high-frequency ultrasonic waves. This mist was then carried by an inert gas through a precisely shaped nozzle and sprayed onto a moving substrate, the current collector foil of the battery. As the aerosol was sprayed at supersonic speeds, the tiny droplets would impact the surface and, through the sheer kinetic energy of the collision, instantly bond together to form a dense, perfectly uniform thin film. It was like spray painting at the atomic level. The genius of this technique was its control. By carefully tuning the composition of the aerosol mist and using multiple nozzles, they could build their quantum weave separator layer by layer. One nozzle would deposit the polymer matrix, while another would embed the ceramic platelets in their perfect overlapping orientation. They could control the thickness and density of the film with angstrom-level precision. The entire process was additive, meaning there was almost no wasted material. It was also incredibly fast. Instead of slowly baking ceramic sheets in an oven for hours, they could deposit their advanced separator material onto the electrode foil at a rate of hundreds of meters per minute. The production line looked less like a traditional battery factory and more like a futuristic printing press, with vast rolls of copper and aluminum foil being fed in one end and emerging at the other, coated with the miraculous quantum weave film.
This breakthrough in manufacturing had staggering implications for cost. It eliminated the most energy-intensive and time-consuming step in solid-state production. It used cheaper raw materials and operated in a normal atmospheric environment, dramatically reducing both the capital expenditure for the factory and the operational cost of production. Aetherion designed the entire process to be modular. A single acoustic mist deposition line could be housed in a relatively small footprint, and a factory's capacity could be scaled up simply by adding more lines, like adding more servers to a data center. They had not only invented a new battery, they had invented a new way to build batteries. They had created a blueprint for a gigafactory that would be cheaper to build, more efficient to run, and capable of producing a vastly superior product. While the rest of the world was trying to figure out how to affordably bake a ceramic cake, Aetherion was perfecting the art of printing one. This was the second pillar of their revolution, and it was the one that would allow them to scale their assault on the kingdom of lithium-ion. With the dendrite and manufacturing problems solved, Aetherion turned its attention to the third and often overlooked weakness of solid-state batteries, temperature sensitivity. While solid-state technology promised to solve the overheating and fire issues of liquid-based batteries, early prototypes from other companies had a crippling Achilles heel at the opposite end of the thermometer. They performed terribly in the cold. The solid electrolytes, particularly the ceramic ones, saw their ionic conductivity plummet as temperatures dropped. A solid-state battery that offered fantastic performance in a California summer could become a sluggish, unresponsive brick in a Scandinavian winter. The ions would essentially get frozen in place within the rigid crystal structure of the electrolyte, unable to move efficiently. This meant that an EV equipped with such a battery would suffer from the same, if not worse, winter range loss as a conventional lithium-ion car. It also meant that fast charging in cold weather would be impossible. For a technology that was supposed to be a no-compromise solution, this was a massive compromise. Aetherion's quantum weave architecture offered a unique solution to this problem as well. The key was once again in its composite nature. The conductivity in their separator didn't primarily rely on ions moving through a rigid ceramic lattice. Instead, the ions traveled along two distinct pathways, through the flexible polymer matrix and along the superconductive surfaces of the embedded ceramic platelets. The polymer matrix, which made up a significant volume of the separator, was specifically engineered to have a very low glass transition temperature. This meant it remained soft, flexible, and ionically conductive even at temperatures well below freezing, down to negative 40 degrees Celsius and beyond. While its conductivity did decrease in the cold, it did not fall off a cliff like in pure ceramic electrolytes.
This provided a reliable, albeit slower, baseline pathway for the battery to operate even in extreme cold. The real trick, however, lay in the battery's own internal management system. Because Aetherion's battery was fundamentally non-flammable and could handle extremely high currents, they could employ a radical preheating strategy. When the car was started in freezing conditions, the battery management system would intentionally create a tiny, controlled internal short circuit for a fraction of a second, drawing a massive current that would flow through the battery's internal resistance. This generated a rapid and uniform burst of internal heat. Because the heat was generated everywhere inside the cells simultaneously, the battery could warm itself from minus 20 degrees Celsius to its optimal operating temperature of 25 degrees Celsius in a matter of seconds, not minutes. This would be suicidally dangerous in a lithium-ion battery, a guaranteed recipe for thermal runaway and a fire. But in Aetherion's inherently safe solid-state design, it was a perfectly controlled and highly efficient feature. The energy consumed for this preheating was minimal, equivalent to losing perhaps 1 or 2 miles of total range. In exchange, the driver would have access to the battery's full power and full fast charging capability almost instantly, regardless of the outside temperature. This combination of a cold-resistant material and an intelligent, ultra-fast internal heating system completely neutralized the problem of winter performance. An Aetherion-powered EV would have virtually the same range and charging speed in the dead of winter as it would on a perfect summer day. They hadn't just made a better battery, they had made an all-weather warrior. This was the final piece of the puzzle. They had a battery that was safe,
Energy-dense, fast-charging, cheap to produce, and completely indifferent to the cold. They had built the perfect weapon. Now it was time to show it to the world. Aetherion Dynamics chose not to reveal their breakthrough in a scientific paper or at a stuffy academic conference. They understood that to truly shake the foundations of the automotive industry, they needed to speak a language everyone, from engineers to investors to the general public, performance. They organized a private event, inviting a small, hand-picked group of top-tier automotive journalists, industry analysts, and, most importantly, technical scouts from every major car manufacturer in the world. The attendees were required to sign ironclad non-disclosure agreements. The location was a private vehicle testing facility in the Nevada desert. The mood was thick with skepticism.
These were people who had heard the promises of solid-state technology for years and had seen nothing but vaporware. On the presentation stage stood Aetherion CEO, the reclusive professor who had started it all. Next to her were two identical-looking, unbranded electric vehicle prototypes. They were built on a generic EV skateboard platform, but their bodies were sleek and aerodynamic. One was labeled Benchmark Vehicle and the other Aetherion Vehicle. The CEO explained that the Benchmark vehicle was equipped with the best-in-class, state-of-the-art lithium-ion battery pack from a leading EV manufacturer, everyone knew they meant Tesla, with a capacity of 100 kilowatt-hours. The Aetherion vehicle, she explained, had a battery pack of the exact same physical size, volume, and weight. The first test was a simple range demonstration. Both cars, fully charged, were driven by autonomous systems at a constant 65 miles per hour around the facility's massive oval track. The Benchmark vehicle performed as expected, tapping out after an impressive 405 miles. The Aetherion vehicle just kept going. It passed 500 miles, then 600, then 700. It continued to circle the track in near silence, a testament to its radical energy density. It finally came to a stop after completing 980 miles on a single charge. A murmur of disbelief rippled through the audience. It was more than double the range of the best battery on the market. Next came the charging demonstration. Both vehicles were brought to a charging station equipped with a new experimental 1 megawatt charger. The Benchmark vehicle was plugged in and began charging at its maximum rate, around 250 kilowatts. The screen showed an estimated time of 35 minutes to go from 10% to 80% charge. Then they plugged in the Aetherion vehicle. The screen flickered as the charger communicated with the car, and then the number ramped up. 250 kilowatts, 500, 700. It stabilized at an astonishing 950 kilowatts. The battery percentage indicator on the screen wasn't climbing, it was flying. In just 6 minutes, the car had gone from 10% to 80% state of charge, adding nearly 700 miles of range. The final demonstration was the most dramatic. On a reinforced concrete pad, a standalone Aetherion battery pack was placed. A technician took a heavy-duty industrial drill and drilled a hole straight through the center of the pack. The crowd flinched, expecting an explosion. Nothing happened. A few wisps of vapor escaped the hole, but there was no fire, no smoke, no thermal event. The screen next to the pack, showing its voltage and temperature, barely flickered. They then took a nail gun and fired a steel spike directly into one of the cells. Again, nothing. This was the final proof. They hadn't just claimed to have solved the problems of solid state, they had proven it, demonstrably and undeniably, in front of the most critical and influential audience imaginable. The shot had been fired, and it was a direct hit on the heart of the lithium-ion empire. The world of transportation was about to change forever. The attendees left the Nevada desert in a state of stunned silence. The NDAs they had signed prevented them from reporting on what they had seen, but the industry is a small world, and secrets that big don't stay secrets for long. Whispers turned into rumors, and rumors spread like wildfire through the back channels of the automotive and financial worlds. The scouts from the major automakers immediately flew back to their headquarters in Germany, Japan, and Detroit to deliver emergency briefings to their boards. The message was simple and terrifying. Everything we thought we knew about our EV roadmaps is now obsolete.
The meticulous 10-year plans, the billions invested in new lithium-ion factories, the entire strategic direction of their companies, all of it was now predicated on a technology that had just been rendered a historical artifact. The reaction from most of the legacy automakers was a frantic mix of panic and excitement. They saw the threat, but they also saw an opportunity. Aetherion's technology was a great equalizer. It was a chance to leapfrog Tesla, to erase the battery tech lead that Musk had spent a decade building. Their phones started ringing off the hook at Aetherion's headquarters. The offers began to pour in: partnerships, joint ventures, licensing deals, and of course, outright acquisition offers that reached into the tens of billions of dollars. But the most interesting reaction was the one that didn't happen. From Silicon Valley, from the company that had defined the EV industry, there was only a deafening silence. Tesla, a company famously aggressive in its communications and quick to debunk any perceived threat, said nothing. Elon Musk, a man who uses Twitter like a personal megaphone to comment on everything from artificial intelligence to cryptocurrency, tweeted nothing about batteries. This silence was more telling than any press release. It was the silence of a king who has just heard that a peasant army armed with cannons has appeared at the castle gates. Internally, Tesla would have been in a state of controlled chaos. Their own battery research division, one of the best in the world, would have been tasked with a single urgent directive: find out if this is real. They would be analyzing the rumors, trying to get their hands on any scrap of data from the demonstration, and running simulations to see if the claimed performance figures were even theoretically possible. They would have known, better than anyone, the sheer difficulty of the problems Aetherion claimed to have solved, and that's what would have scared them the most. If Aetherion had truly solved the dendrite, interface, and manufacturing challenges, then Tesla's multi-billion-dollar gigafactories, monuments to their manufacturing prowess, were suddenly at risk of becoming the world's most advanced buggy whip factories. Their competitive advantage, their technological moat, was about to evaporate. The silence from Tesla was a strategic necessity. To acknowledge the threat would be to validate it, sending their stock price into a nosedive. To dismiss it as vaporware would be incredibly risky. If Aetherion then went public with a major automotive partner, Tesla would look foolish and reactive. So they stayed quiet, hoping it would go away, while behind the scenes, they were undoubtedly scrambling to formulate a response. The entire power dynamic of the automotive world had shifted in a single afternoon in the desert. The undisputed leader was now on the defensive, and the future of the company was suddenly, for the first time in a decade, uncertain. Inside the war room at Tesla's Austin headquarters, Elon Musk and his top engineers would be facing the ultimate strategic dilemma. Their entire empire was built on the foundation of having the best batteries. This wasn't just about range, it was about cost, performance, and the manufacturing scale that their gigafactories provided. Aethernion's breakthrough threatened to dynamite that foundation. They would have three potential paths forward, each with its own immense risks and potential rewards. The first option, and the most humbling, would be to acquire. Tesla has a massive war chest and a soaring stock price that it could use as currency. They could make Aetherion an offer so astronomically high that it would be impossible to refuse: $50 billion, $100 billion, a number that would make it one of the largest tech acquisitions in history. The logic is compelling: buy the threat, internalize the technology, and maintain their position at the top. A Tesla powered by Aetherion's solid-state battery would be an unbeatable product, a car with a 1,000-mile range that charges in minutes. It would secure their dominance for another generation. However, this path is fraught with peril. Aetherion's founders, driven by a scientific mission, might not want to sell. They might see Tesla as part of the old guard and prefer to partner with a legacy automaker to spread their technology more widely. Furthermore, such a massive acquisition could face intense regulatory scrutiny. Antitrust bodies around the world might see it as a monopolistic move designed to stifle competition and block any deal. The second option would be to compete. This would be the classic innovator's dilemma response.
Tesla could publicly dismiss solid state as a niche, expensive technology that is still years away from true mass production, while privately throwing every available resource into accelerating their own internal solid state research program. They have some of the best battery engineers on the planet. They could try to reverse engineer Aetherion's approach or develop their own competing architecture. This strategy would leverage their greatest strength, manufacturing scale. Musk could argue that even if Aetherion has better lab tech, Tesla is the only company in the world that can produce batteries at a scale of hundreds of gigawatt hours per year. They could try to win by outproducing and outcosting everyone, hoping their lithium-ion tech can remain good enough for long enough for their own solid-state solution to catch up. This is a high-stakes gamble. It assumes Aetherion can't scale quickly, and it assumes Tesla's own R&D can close a multi-year technology gap in a short amount of time. If they are wrong on either of those assumptions, they will be left hopelessly behind. The third and most dangerous option would be to discredit. Tesla could launch a public relations campaign aimed at sowing fear, uncertainty, and doubt about Aetherion and solid-state technology. They could highlight potential unknown failure modes, question the long-term durability of the new materials, or claim the manufacturing process uses rare or toxic elements. Musk, with his massive public platform, could personally lead the charge, framing Aetherion as unproven and risky compared to Tesla's decade of real-world data on lithium-ion. This is a scorched earth tactic. It could be effective in the short term, slowing down adoption and creating hesitation among potential partners and consumers. But if Aetherion's technology proves to be as robust as it seems, this strategy would backfire spectacularly, destroying Tesla's credibility and making them look like a desperate, defensive incumbent, no better than the old Detroit automakers they once mocked. The choice they make will define the next chapter of the automotive industry. It's a multi-billion-dollar poker game, and the whole world is watching to see what cards Elon Musk is holding. The revolution started by Aetherion Dynamics will not stop at the garage door. While the electric vehicle is the most visible and immediate application for their solid-state battery, the technology's true impact will be felt across every sector of the global economy. A safe, cheap, and incredibly energy-dense storage medium is the missing piece of the puzzle for a truly sustainable future, and its arrival will trigger a cascade of innovation on a scale not seen since the invention of the microchip. Consider commercial aviation. The dream of electric flight has always been grounded by the immense weight and limited energy of lithium-ion batteries. A battery powerful enough to lift a passenger jet would be too heavy for the jet to take off. Aetherion's technology changes that equation entirely. With double or triple the energy density and a significant reduction in weight due to the lack of cooling and safety systems, electric propulsion for short-haul and medium-haul flights suddenly moves from the realm of science fiction to near-term reality. Imagine whisper-quiet, zero-emission jets hopping between cities powered by swappable, rapidly chargeable battery packs. It would completely transform the airline industry, eliminating its massive carbon footprint and drastically reducing noise pollution around airports. Then there's the energy grid itself. The biggest challenge for renewable energy sources like solar and wind is intermittency. The sun doesn't always shine, and the wind doesn't always blow. To create a reliable grid powered by renewables, you need a way to store massive amounts of energy when it's plentiful and release it when it's needed. Lithium-ion grid storage projects, like Tesla's Megapack, have been a step in the right direction, but their cost, footprint, and limited lifespan are major barriers to global deployment. Aetherion solid-state batteries, with their lower cost, incredible longevity, tens of thousands of cycles, and perfect safety, meaning they can be installed in dense urban areas without risk, are the ideal solution. Utility-scale Aetherion battery farms could store entire cities' worth of power, stabilizing the grid and enabling a complete transition away from fossil fuel power plants. Every home could have its own small, perfectly safe power pack, storing solar energy from the roof during the day and powering the house all night, creating true energy independence. The impact continues into consumer electronics. Your smartphone could last for a week on a single charge. Your laptop could run for days. Power tools would have more torque and longer run times.
Medical devices like pacemakers could have batteries that last a lifetime, eliminating the need for replacement surgeries. The shipping industry, responsible for a huge portion of global emissions, could transition to electric cargo ships. Heavy industry and mining could replace diesel-powered machinery with powerful, clean electric alternatives.
Aetherion's breakthrough is not just a better battery. It is a fundamental enabling technology. It is a catalyst that will unlock progress in dozens of other fields. By solving the problem of energy storage, they have provided the foundation upon which a new, cleaner, more efficient, and more electrified world can be built. The car was just the beginning. The real prize is the complete transformation of our relationship with energy. As the news of Aetherion's technology finally breaks into the public domain, the world will scramble to adapt to the new reality. The stock market will be the first to react. Tesla's stock, long seen as an untouchable titan of growth, will face its first true crisis of confidence. Investors will be forced to question whether a company so heavily invested in lithium-ion manufacturing can pivot quickly enough. Meanwhile, the stocks of cobalt and nickel mining companies will plummet, while companies specializing in lithium production and advanced ceramics will soar. A new gold rush will begin, not for precious metals, but for the raw materials and intellectual property behind the next generation of energy. The geopolitical landscape will also be redrawn. For decades, global power has been tied to the control of oil reserves. The lithium-ion era began to shift that power towards countries that controlled the refining of battery materials, like China. Aetherion's technology, which is designed to use more abundant and easily sourced materials, could democratize energy production. The intellectual property behind the quantum weave and acoustic mist deposition will become one of the most valuable and fiercely contested assets on the planet. Governments will declare solid-state battery production a matter of national security, leading to a new kind of technological Cold War, with nations racing to build their own domestic supply chains and manufacturing capabilities. For consumers, the change will be profound and overwhelmingly positive. The EV adoption curve, which was already steep, will go vertical. When electric cars can offer a 1,000-mile range, charge in 5 minutes, cost less than an equivalent gasoline car, and last for over 1,000,000 miles with zero battery degradation, the arguments for internal combustion will simply cease to exist. The used car market for gasoline vehicles will collapse. Gas stations will begin a rapid conversion into ultra-fast charging hubs with cafes and convenience stores. The very sound of our cities will change, as the roar of engines is replaced by the quiet hum of electric motors. The legacy automakers who are quick to partner with Aetherion or develop their own competing solid-state technology will thrive, experiencing a renaissance. Those who are slow, who cling to their old investments and familiar technologies, will face an extinction-level event. Brands that have existed for a century could disappear in less than a decade. The very concept of car ownership might even change. With batteries that last for millions of miles and electric powertrains that are incredibly simple and reliable, the idea of a robo-taxi, an autonomous vehicle that runs nearly 24/7, becomes economically viable. Fleets of these vehicles could provide on-demand transportation at a cost far lower than owning a personal car. This isn't a distant, futuristic vision. This is the direct, logical consequence of solving the energy storage problem. Aetherion Dynamics, the small company that started in a university lab, will have done more than just build a better battery. They will have set in motion a chain of events that will lead to cleaner air, a more stable climate, a rebalanced geopolitical order, and a fundamental change in how humanity lives, works, and moves. They will have become the architects of the future. The story of the electric vehicle has, until now, been the story of Tesla. It's a story of a visionary company led by a singular personality that dragged a reluctant, century-old industry into the future. They proved that electric cars could be desirable, fast, and compelling. They built the charging infrastructure and scaled production in a way no one thought possible. They were the first revolution. But every revolution, no matter how powerful, eventually gives way to the next.
The pioneers who cross the wilderness are not always the same people who build the cities in the new land. Tesla, with its mastery of lithium-ion technology, was the perfect pioneer. But the compromises of that technology, the range anxiety, the charging times, the safety concerns, were the rocks and rivers that kept the masses from following. Aetherion Dynamics, with its solid-state breakthrough, has just paved over that wilderness. They have built a superhighway into the electric future, a path with no compromises and no barriers. The technology they've unleashed represents the second electric revolution. It's a revolution that will be defined not by a single charismatic leader, but by the fundamental laws of chemistry and physics. It's a revolution that will finish the job the first one started, leading to the complete and total obsolescence of the internal combustion engine. The question of whether Tesla will survive and adapt or be swept away by this new technological tide remains unanswered. Elon Musk has faced down impossible odds before and won. It would be foolish to count him out. But for the first time, he is not the one holding the disruptive weapon. He is the one staring down its barrel.
For the rest of us, the future of transportation, and indeed the future of energy itself, has never looked brighter. The era of compromise is over. The age of solid state has begun. The change will be swift, it will be decisive, and it will be absolute. The quiet company that nobody knew existed is about to become the most important company in the world.